The following episode is part of a series dedicated to exposing an organized hateful group that has been on a relentless pursuit to destroy the medical medium community and that has been attacking, bullying, harassing, and preying upon the chronically ill. Joining me in this series is a guest named Amber Vizzacaro. She's an alternative medicine practitioner who became a whistleblower after she witnessed this hateful group in action when they tried to recruit her to join them last year. Amber caught the main members of this group on legally recorded calls describing their premeditated multi-step plan to create a, quote, post-medical medium era by feeding false stories and claims about me and about medical medium information to major media outlets in hopes that it would lead to securing themselves a deal for an anti-medical medium documentary on Netflix that would bring fame and other benefits to them. Now known infamously instead for their malicious plot that was caught on recording and exposed, we refer to this hateful group as the Plotters. Their entire smear campaign is spearheaded by one woman who comes from an extremely wealthy family, didn't get what she wanted from me years ago, and is now seeking revenge. She's made it her mission to gather a bunch of plotters with ulterior motives and axes to grind, including competitors in the health industry, to try to frame medical medium and take down the community. What this organized hateful group has done is unprecedented. It's one of the biggest scandals that's ever happened in the health industry. As you'll see, it's also one of the biggest instances of capturing corruption within the mainstream media. So prepare yourself for lots of details and nuances as we are going to be thoroughly untangling the massive web of lies they have spun. And we're going to be releasing a lot of disturbing new information, new recordings, and mind-blowing evidence of just how far they are going to lie to try to get what they want. Some of the evidence we're presenting in these episodes includes original written content, such as text messages, social media posts that have been produced by the plotters and will be reenacted for greater ease in following along. Those who are listening along to the podcast can find video versions of these episodes on the Medical Medium YouTube and Rumble channels that will be displaying screenshots, photos, videos, and more. Some of you may be unaware that this has even been happening, but many of you have been tremendously injured and harmed by what they have done. The record needs to be set straight, and they need to be called out for what they've done and are still doing. The medical medium community does not deserve to be attacked like this, and we are going to set the record straight as many times as we need to.
We have a guest here with us today who is a highly respected holistic health practitioner and speech pathologist and was a friend of Stephanie's. Her name is Dr. Kimberly Spair. Kim and her husband supported Stephanie at the time of her illness. Back in 2020, Ashleigh posted her original false story about Stephanie, which she made more than 15 false claims in one version of and told more than 20 falsehoods in another version of. Kimberly's husband corrected Ashleigh in the comments on something she'd gotten very wrong, and Ashleigh had to adjust her false story because of it. Kimberly made a statement to her own small private community to calm fears and chaos that Ashleigh had created with her false story. Ashleigh was not happy about this, and she responded by attacking Kim and trying to intimidate her. To this day, Ashleigh has continued to publicly attack Kimberly and her family. Kimberly, thank you for coming on to share your story. I know that this situation has been extremely upsetting.
Thank you, Amber. This is a really sad situation. A dear friend that I cared about is being used for an agenda that seems to have been created years after her passing. I would have never shared the intimate details of her story because Stephanie's privacy is my number one concern. However, the plotters have shared very intimate details of Stephanie's story and even delicate, unnecessary details about her life. I was recently attacked and have been continually attacked since 2020. The attacks were sudden, they were out of the blue. I was actually really shocked when they began. I felt it was really necessary for me to set a few things straight here today.
Yeah. Could you start, Kim, by telling us first about your relationship with Stephanie and how you were supporting her when she was sick?
Yeah. So we met actually at Ashleigh's home during the LA Medical Medium event. Stephanie and I became instant friends. We realized that we lived just one state over from each other and that she had a nephew that was very close in age to my son. We started texting and voice texting a lot. Stephanie was sweet, she was funny, she was loving, and she was always looking for advice, but she was also always offering to help in any way that she could. I would meet up with Stephanie for lunch at the grocery store, juice bars, and I met up with her the night that her niece was born at the hospital to arm her with the things that she wanted to support her sister-in-law through labor. A few months later, I met her sister-in-law, niece, and nephew for a lunch date, and we bounced together along with her family and my family at her nephew's birthday party. Stephanie was so proud of her niece and nephew and wanted me to be friends with her sister-in-law because she thought we had so much in common and we had kids that were really close in age. I adored Stephanie and the friendship that we shared. I soon became pregnant with my second child, and Stephanie volunteered to help me postpartum with my 2-year-old son, the same way that she supported her sister-in-law and her nephew, because she told me I helped to support her and her brother's family postpartum, and that I also needed that same help. She was always so gentle, so kind, and always questioned how I was working full-time, how I was pregnant, and also caring for a 2-year-old. She got it, and it meant so much to me. When Stephanie got sick, I remember discussing doctors with her and offering to go with her into the city and hold her hand. But Stephanie was not receptive to the idea of seeing a doctor at that time.
Wow. And then what was happening and what were things like after Stephanie got sick?
So this was really hard. When Stephanie took a turn for the worst, I was getting ready to birth my baby. I was planning a VBAC birth, as my first birth was a traumatic emergency birth, and the stress of what I'm about to explain was impacting my ability to birth my baby. I was under so much pressure, and I was having such a hard time shifting into birth mode as I was on constant group messages with then friends, colleagues, medical doctors, consultants, and personally with Stephanie to support her as best I could. The pressure was never, ever from Stephanie. It was coming from several of the plotters, mostly Ashleigh, who lived across the country. They were looking at a map and telling me that I live an hour and 20 minutes from Stephanie. But in reality, with city traffic, this oftentimes could take up to 4 hours each way. This is why when Stephanie and I did meet up before she was sick, we were always extremely strategic about our planning. The city traffic where we live is horrendous. And the driving around here during the city traffic, it's just crazy. So back to my birth. I was literally in the birthing tub, birthing my baby on text threads with Stephanie and with her supporters, several of which are now involved in trying to take this community down. When I finally birthed my baby, I was back on the text threads within minutes, planning how I could best support Stephanie. This was before my family or my son had even met my new daughter. I was under so much pressure. Before I was even cleared to drive by my midwives, I was back on my feet, caring for my newborn, caring for my 2-year-old, and driving food and teas and supplements that Stephanie wanted to her whenever I could. Stephanie herself did not want me doing this, but the plotters continued to push me. Like I was some type of robot that should birth a baby and then be back to running around. I also opened up my home to a house guest when I was only a few weeks postpartum. A friend, Gretchen. She came to my house and stayed with me so that she could support Stephanie. My husband and I gave up a car. We ran errands on no sleep. We also opened our home to illness, as Gretchen was in and out of the hospital and then back in our home around my newborn. We all came down with the flu when my baby was just a few weeks old. My 2-year-old was also sick. It was one of the hardest experiences of my life, being postpartum, having a baby, being exposed to a flu. On one trip to pick up Gretchen, again, before I was cleared to drive, I was so tired that I went to pump gas near Stephanie's home. The gas station was old and the pump was malfunctioning and I was exhausted. I grabbed the nozzle and I pressed it a few times before it turned on, soaking me in gasoline. My hair was soaked. My clothes were soaked. I was drenched from head to toe. I was sprayed in the eyes and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was shaking from the freezing temperatures. My newborn, she was in the back seat, breathing in all the fumes. I rushed to Stephanie's house with my windows down, freezing, shaking, and I had to shower and wear someone else's clothes home. The whole time period, it was totally insane. I had a baby, a newborn, that was just a few weeks old, and a 2-year-old son. And I was being pushed by women across the country, mostly Ashleigh, to do more and more. I had already been supporting Stephanie in every way that I could. I had given her money. I had purchased supplements that she wanted and couldn't afford. I was cooking her meals when I could, bringing her teas when I could. My husband even took food to the hospital at one point, just days after my daughter was born. He felt extremely uncomfortable in the hospital as Stephanie wanted to talk to him and welcome the food, but he felt so mixed up in a situation where some of the plotters were screaming at her family. One of the plotters, Taylor, was attacking Stephanie's father, having a heated discussion while disagreeing with Stephanie's father about her treatment. My husband, during those days, was rushing home from work so that he or I could run things. We could move cars, we could run errands, we could manage house guests, cook meals, run guests back and forth with a baby and a 2-year-old. I wanted to do everything for Stephanie. But Ashleigh was creating a pressure on me that almost broke me during that time.
Wow. There's so much to unpack here from this story, and it sounds like such an unbelievably stressful and traumatic time. Having gasoline sprayed all over your body like that when your body's already compromised from having just given birth, let alone when you're breastfeeding, it's a tremendous exposure. I can't even imagine. I would have been devastated. And despite having just given birth, you and your husband were both doing the best that you could to help Stephanie while she was sick. You weren't cleared to even drive yet, and you did it anyway. The drive wasn't short. I want to bring in a text that we have from Stephanie. She had sent it to a friend. This was from before she had gotten sick. And she was talking about some items that she was thinking about picking up from you. And she says, okay, cool. She isn't super close, so may not get it unless it's super important. This text from Stephanie corroborates the fact that you were far enough away from her that it would have been a hassle for her to pick up items from your house if they weren't super important. You said that your husband brought food to the hospital and spent time around the family. You both were actually there, and you got to witness what was going on in person when Stephanie was sick. As Ashleigh mainly was putting all of this pressure on you to do more and more, I'm wondering, where was Ashleigh and what was Ashleigh doing during the 1.5 years that Stephanie was sick?
I have actually been to Ashleigh's family home in Pebble Beach, California. But at the time, I didn't know how well off she was. She was actually in Malibu while Stephanie was sick. She kept saying she was very far away. I now wonder why she didn't offer Stephanie more support or come to see her. She very well had the means to do it. Instead, Ashleigh put incredible pressure on me, knowing that I didn't have postpartum support. I didn't have anyone there helping me, supporting me. Ashleigh and Gretchen were both marketing and running retreats during the time of Stephanie's illness and after she passed. The retreats were out of state and they had to travel to get to them. Somehow Ashleigh could travel for the retreats, but she never made it to see Stephanie.
Yeah. So while Ashleigh was busy running retreats with Gretchen in Hawaii and trying to make money off of the medical medium community, she was bossing you around and putting pressure on you to help even more than you already were. You and your husband were there with Stephanie and you showed up to help. But Ashleigh, on the other hand, we now know that Ashleigh wasn't physically present for any part of Stephanie's breast lump discovery. She wasn't around for any part of Stephanie's back injury. She didn't visit Stephanie in the hospital once. As we covered earlier on in these podcasts, Ashleigh, the daughter of a billionaire family with a private jet, was on a private jet headed to Pennsylvania, where Stephanie was, just a few months before Stephanie died. And Ashleigh still didn't visit her.
Yeah, I know that Stephanie's family didn't even like Ashleigh or any of the plotters at the time. They didn't like the way that she lived. They didn't like the way that Steph ate, which, by the way, wasn't exactly medical median. She did so many things.
So the family didn't like Ashleigh. Ashleigh wasn't around at all. And somehow, for some reason, Ashleigh has tried to position herself as an authority on Stephanie. I want to bring us back to when Ashleigh posted her original false story online in 2020. Ashleigh made more than 15 false claims in one version and more than 20 false claims in another version. Your husband, however, having firsthand knowledge of what had occurred, corrected Ashleigh in the comments of one of her posts. He said, "But you're missing the critical part when Anthony, at Medical Medium, told her she needed to see a doctor and have the lump dealt with. Oh, I forgot. That doesn't fit your agenda." Ashleigh replied to this by saying,
"Anthony didn't tell her to see a doctor until she was bleeding from her nipples, the same point at which he stopped communicating with her."
At this point in the Plotter podcast series, we all know that this is far from the truth. To this, your husband responded by saying, "I don't know the whole story, nor claim to, but if you are going to claim the truth needs to be out there, at least do such a thing in its entirety. The above is one case in point, which you just acknowledged you skipped over, and I'm sure there are others. Kind of calling the kettle black when you want to make allegations of people being liars." Your husband called Ashleigh out for being inaccurate and falsely narrating the story the way that it served her agenda. Even people who didn't know what happened with Stephanie found Ashleigh's story to be alarmingly inconsistent with what they know of Anthony and medical medium information. One person commented and said, "Doesn't he always say to see a doctor and see what the diagnosis is and go from there?" Another person added, "I listen to Anthony's podcasts and have never heard him suggest not to see a doctor, conventional or otherwise. I find it hard to believe your claim that Anthony explicitly told her not to see a doctor." After all of the pushback and being corrected by your husband, Ashleigh commented this:
"I tried to add it to my post, but Instagram won't let me. But if IG will allow me later, I will add it."
Initially, Ashleigh left out any mention of any doctors being involved. Then, here, because of your husband's correction and the pushback she was getting, she changed her story and went on from there to say Anthony told Stephanie to see a doctor, but not until it was too late, which is still very far from the truth. And with all of her blatant false claims, Ashleigh caused a lot of damage. One comment on this post read, "He should have told her to see a doctor the moment she found the lump and told him. It should be a lesson for him and any healer. I've heard similar stories many times with other healers. I'm just so sorry again to hear this." We hope that this person has now listened to our podcasts to learn the truth, even though they probably didn't, because they're probably long gone since being scared by Ashleigh's false claims. If they have been listening, they would have learned that this is exactly, in fact, what Anthony did. Exactly one day after Stephanie reached out about her breast lump discovery, Anthony and his wife texted that you should always see a physician. Even after being corrected by your husband, Ashleigh continued on with more falsities. She commented this.
He told her to see a doctor when it was too late for them to do anything. And when he clearly realized he had screwed up, it was at this point that he also cut off communication with her. It doesn't feel very relevant to me that after years of telling her not to see a doctor and that she would be fine, he changed his tune when she was incredibly ill.
There are so many false things in here, it's disturbing. Not a single sentence is accurate. As we've covered, Anthony told Stephanie to see a doctor from the very beginning. He didn't screw up. Anthony was consistent in his messaging to Stephanie all throughout the time of her illness that doctors should be involved. He never changed his tune. And Anthony was not the one who cut off communication with Stephanie. We'll get to that more in a bit, but my gosh, Kim, no wonder you had to make a statement. I mean, can you just describe for us what was going on in the community at the time after she did this? I know that many people had reached out to me, and I know that many people were reaching out to you too. What was the impression that they had gotten from Ashleigh's post?
Ashleigh compared Stephanie to her own father, who she said did everything his fancy doctors told him to do, but summarized that none of them actually had any idea what they were doing. She said her dad did everything the conventional doctors told him to do, and he died. Stephanie also followed conventional treatment, yet Ashleigh insinuated that Stephanie followed a protocol designed by Anthony and died. This isn't true. Stephanie received conventional treatment. As for the community, it was a mess. It became so divided. The fear was unbelievable. What Ashleigh did was instill fear in so many people. It was like they started thinking their spinach salad or their spinach soup was harming them, and they went back to a standard American diet or went back to eating McDonald's.
It's horrifying. And it's all so far from the truth, all based on completely false claims. I've seen from the data that Stephanie received conventional cancer treatment for almost a year. And because you, unlike Ashleigh, were directly involved with Stephanie's situation, you were there in person, you had the ability to set the record straight. So you and another practitioner, who was also directly involved, sent letters out to each of your private communities. I remember those letters. I remember the volatile situation that Ashleigh had created with her disinformation. You and the other practitioner handled this with a tremendous amount of care, grace, and a lot of respect, while protecting Stephanie and her private information after Ashleigh had exploited her to serve her own agenda. I have your letter in front of me, and here are some of the critical clarifications that you made. Stephanie was not under Anthony's care for cancer. Anthony did not provide supplementation or food protocols for her cancer. All cancer-related medical decisions were being made by Stephanie's family and a few close friends. Stephanie received chemotherapy and many other conventional medical treatments. You also shared in here about how devastating it was for you to have lost a friend, and about how unhappy you knew it would make Stephanie that Anthony was being inaccurately blamed for such a terrible tragedy. You had every right to send this letter. You had every right to make those clarifications. And we now know those clarifications to be true, as proven by the evidence that has been presented in these podcast episodes. But Ashleigh obviously didn't like that. So can you explain what happened after these letters were sent out?
Yeah. Ashleigh started attacking me on texts, on audio messages while I was driving in the pouring rain. And then she took the letters we sent to a very small private community these were not public communities. And she made a retaliation post, posting these letters publicly, and then calling me and the other practitioner liars.
Okay, so let's unpack that. In the retaliation post Ashleigh made, she said this.
Some women I know were really upset by my post. They knew Steph personally, though I wouldn't call them good friends of hers.
So we've got a false claim right at the beginning. Now, I think that Ashleigh tried to discount your friendship with Stephanie to make you appear less credible. Ashleigh also did an Instagram Live on April 1st of 2020 in which she took it even further.
What about the response of other practitioners defending him and putting others down? Man, that's so hard to talk about. I mean, first of all, they called themselves Steph's friends, which was really hard because they were not her friends. Like, they knew her. They weren't friends with her. It was amazing to me. Frankly, if I'm being totally honest, it was kind of just shocking. And for them to see and walk through that experience, the only thing I keep coming back to is they didn't know Steph that well.
So here she went as far as to say publicly that you and the other practitioner weren't friends with Stephanie at all. I know that this is false, first of all, because Ashleigh told me the exact opposite on the phone several months ago. As a reminder to everyone, I recorded that call and it appeared in our podcast episodes and previous episodes. And just so everyone also knows and understands, that recording was completely legal. Ashleigh has made false claims about that as well. But here is what Ashleigh told me in that call.
And I said this to Kimberly then. And Kimberly's the only person I really lost my temper with because I felt like she was Steph's friend and she saw what happened.
Ashleigh said to me privately on the phone that you were Stephanie's friend and that you saw what happened. Why is this the opposite of what Ashleigh shared in her 2020 blog post? Because it sounds to me like she was trying to deceive the public. In Ashleigh's live, she also told this falsity.
They weren't there at the beginning of her journey. They kind of came in at the very end when Anthony ghosted.
This one is even more ridiculous. I've seen from all the text records that the other practitioner Ashleigh is referring to became friends with and started texting with Stephanie in June of 2016, a year before Stephanie's health really took a turn. And you met Stephanie at the live event in 2016 and became friends with her at that point as well. I've seen so much evidence of both of you having been there for her and offering your support to Stephanie early on in her illness journey. As we've talked about before, Ashleigh loves to say that Anthony ghosted Stephanie to get people riled up. It's a tactic, but it's completely false. Stephanie's family cut off communication between them and told Anthony in a very aggressive way to stay away. So Ashleigh made plenty of false claims here.
Yeah. So Stephanie sent me hundreds of voice notes. Many of them were long voice notes. That's the kind of relationship I had with Steph. I got many times the daily update from her. I knew what she did from the moment she woke up. She would take me through her morning routine and how she spent many of her days. Her messages were personal, like really, really personal. They were family. They were about friendships. She asked for help supporting the ones that she loved. She always asked for advice. I know the very intimate details of some of the closest family members to her. She shared it all. She offered to stay in my home when I was postpartum to care for my son and to care for me the way that she did for her own nephew. I don't think you share that much and offer so much with someone who is not your friend.
Yeah, it sounds like the two of you were close friends to me. We also know that Ashleigh's claims are false because we have audios that Stephanie had sent to a friend talking about how close she was with you.
Gretchen and Kim have just become good friends, really sweet women and really great people.
And about trips she had taken with you.
Tomorrow I'm actually going away with Kim, Kimberly Spair, and we're going to see Gretchen because she's in Pennsylvania right now. I remember I told you about that. We're just going to go for like a couple days and spend some time with her. And then again, in a couple weeks, I'm going to go up again for a few days.
We also have a text that Stephanie had sent to a friend about you that reads, "She lives by my brother, which is convenient. I introduced her to my sis-in-law and fam, and they have become friends as well, so that's been nice." And we have a long audio from Stephanie talking about how you were there for part of her back injury, which was months and months before Anthony was told by Stephanie's family to stay away.
Hi. Well, I hurt my back in the beginning of June. I hadn't been doing yoga for a while or Pilates, and I ended up just by fluke, coincidence, I ended up doing them both in the same week. And by the end of that week, my lower back felt kind of weird. Weird enough where literally it was hurting to go on the rebounder. So I kind of had to stop that. And then I went to the chiropractor and everything was better like a day later. But I only waited like a few days to start exercising again. I started like light. I just went on the rebounder for the first couple of days and walked and did pocket gym. But then after a few days, I was back into yoga fully. I was like doing yoga every day and Pilates every day, or almost every day. And I was just feeling so good, and I just like wanted to do all these things, and it was so stupid. In hindsight, I'm like, what am I thinking? We know better than to do that. Just too much at once like that, especially since I hadn't been doing it. I mean, I felt fine doing it. I got right back into it. I was doing like intense stuff, and it was like great. But clearly my body wasn't ready there. And so I went to the chiropractor again, but then it got a little bit better. But then I was carrying all these heavy watermelons, which were killing me. But like I was hanging out with Gretchen and Kim, and when I went up there, I just brought all these watermelons, like seeded huge watermelons. And it just, from there, it got worse and worse. And I was with Gretchen for like almost a week. And when I came home at the beginning of, I guess I came home the 4th of July, it was like horrendous. Like it got really bad, excruciating. Like super, super bad, like crazy spasming and nerve, like shooting pains, and literally I've been home doing nothing for the whole month of July.
All of that goes to show that you were around and there to see a lot of what happened, including that Stephanie injured her back by doing all of the physical things she just described, which again proves Ashleigh's original false storyline wrong, in which Ashleigh had said this on March 7th of 2020 about Stephanie.
In the spring of 2017, her back began to ache. We talked a little bit during her back injury. She told me Anthony said it was a yoga injury. I really don't remember hurting it in yoga, she said.
Ashleigh claimed that Stephanie had said she didn't remember hurting her back in yoga. But we have several audios from Stephanie, like the one we just played, in which Stephanie explains to various different people all about how she injured her back doing yoga and Pilates. So obviously Stephanie was aware and remembered because, as we covered previously, Anthony didn't tell Stephanie that her back problems were due to a yoga injury. Stephanie told people that she had injured her back doing yoga and Pilates. And then she was doing things like carrying heavy watermelons with an already injured back that you witnessed, which made things worse. So now I just want to bring it back to Ashleigh's retaliation post once more. Again, she had said this.
Some women I know were really upset by my post. They knew Steph personally, though I wouldn't call them good friends of hers.
And Ashleigh's April 1st, 2020 live, in which she said this.
I mean, first of all, they called themselves Steph's friends, which was really hard because they were not her friends. Like, they knew her. They weren't friends with her.
We've shown that you, Kim, were indeed a good friend of Stephanie's. We also have text and audio messages showing that the other practitioner Ashleigh was referring to was also, in fact, a good friend of Stephanie's. On June 29th of 2016, Stephanie texted the practitioner, "You're so sweet. I love you, dear friend." In a text from November 11th of 2016, Stephanie says to her, "I love you dearly." In a text from December 29th of 2016, Stephanie said to her, "Hey, sweet friend." In a text from July 8th of 2016, Stephanie said to her, "It's also validating when sharing with a trusted friend." And we have audios from Stephanie discussing how much this practitioner had helped Stephanie, Stephanie's sister-in-law, and Stephanie's brother, who is now a plotter trying to take down the medical medium community during an extremely troubling time for them.
Tony and Megan, my brother's Tony, his wife Megan, they wanted me to be there for the birth. I'm here supporting them. You know, it's just been kind of intense. There's a lot of stuff that was going on at the hospital. Thank God Menezes was with us the entire time, like, you know, over the phone, and she was always so supportive and there for me the whole time, and anything we needed, and supporting Tony and Megan.
There are hundreds and hundreds of text messages that I've read going back and forth between Stephanie and this practitioner, mostly of Stephanie asking the practitioner for advice. The practitioner also helped Stephanie's family in a very significant way during a very dark time for them. Stephanie regularly expressed tremendous gratitude for the positive impact this practitioner had in her life and in her family's lives. We've got all of this evidence of Stephanie calling this practitioner a dear friend, referring to you, Kim, specifically as a good friend, and talking about all the time that you had spent together, including during the time of Stephanie's back injury. Clearly, this practitioner and you were both very important people in Stephanie's life, and Ashleigh told another big falsity to the public.
I was even invited to Stephanie's celebration of life. I was around when Stephanie injured her back. I remember her jumping on that trampoline with her injury. I supported Stephanie and met up with her at the hospital the night that her niece was born. It's a strange thing to have to qualify a friendship. But what Ashleigh said was so hurtful because Stephanie was someone that I really cared about.
Yeah, I'm sure it was really hurtful, and it's a low blow. It was very low for her to go there. And so following the false friendship claims, Ashleigh's retaliation post continued on to say this.
These two women sent out letters about my post to their entire communities. They essentially made it seem like I was lying. This was a really impactful experience for me because something I've never realized before is just how much you can use facts and distort them to create what's actually a lie. And there's nothing I hate more than lying.
So Ashleigh is saying that what you shared was factual, but she's still calling you a liar. And the irony of all is that she's calling you a liar in a post that she, Ashleigh herself, told more than 15 false claims in one version of, and more than 20 in another version of. Kim, how frustrating was it for you to watch Ashleigh do this publicly?
It has been so heartbreaking. It's been extremely traumatizing for me, for my family. The amount of stress that Ashleigh has created with her false stories is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And sadly, she didn't stop there. Ashleigh tried calling you while you were driving in the pouring rain, and because you didn't answer, Ashleigh sent you a barrage of text messages, and I want to walk us through that conversation. In the very first text, Ashleigh tries to rewrite history by retelling her false version of what had happened with Stephanie. She tried to sell this narrative to you, Kim, when you were actually there for Stephanie and witnessing things that had happened firsthand, in person, and Ashleigh was not. The text says this.
Hey girl, I just can't not say something to you. Steph was personally guided by Anthony for years. She did every single thing he ever told her to do. She laid on her back for months while her spine literally crumbled because he told her she had a yoga injury that later he ended up saying was shingles. And then when she started bleeding from her nipples after telling her she would never have cancer, his response to cut her off completely and never speak to her again. Up to days before Steph died, she was texting Anthony begging him just to talk to her. For you to write that letter and knowingly mislead people about their relationship is so absolutely disgusting to me and just frankly unimaginable.
This text has 6 false things in it. 6 critical things that are completely wrong. And it seems as though Ashleigh thinks if she just repeats them enough, she'll be able to get everyone to just go along with it. I'm going to walk us through the false claims. 1, Stephanie did not do everything Anthony ever told her to do. Anthony's consistent message from the beginning was that Stephanie should see a doctor for her breast lump. And Stephanie made the decision to wait too long to follow that advice. 2, Stephanie did not lay on her back for months because Anthony told her she had an injury. 3, Stephanie got stuck laying on her back because Stephanie said herself she had injured her back doing yoga and Pilates. And it was made worse by Stephanie carrying heavy watermelons and jumping on the trampoline, which you were actually around to see. Stephanie got stuck laying on her back because her doctor diagnosed her with a disc injury, and because she was on a small old childhood mattress on the floor that was terrible for her back and made it too difficult for her to get up. 4, Stephanie did not bleed from both nipples. She only bled from one. And 5, Anthony never ever told Stephanie that she would never have cancer. And 6, Anthony did not cut Stephanie off. Stephanie's family told Anthony to stay away. Stephanie did not text Anthony begging him to talk to her. Ashleigh was so wrong about all of it from the beginning, and yet she continued to berate you, Kim, for the factual letter you had sent out to your small private community. Further text messages in this thread from Ashleigh to you said this.
She found a lump in her breast 3 years before she died, and he told her it would never be cancerous. Does that bother you at all? Does it hello? Is this hitting home? I get that you weren't there when that happened, but I was. Come on.
That series of texts from Ashleigh is not only incredibly condescending, but also has 3 more false things in it. The first one, Stephanie did not discover her breast lump when she was living with Ashleigh in 2016. Stephanie, in fact, discovered the lump a year later when Ashleigh was not around. The second false thing, Anthony never told Stephanie that the lump would never become cancerous. He repeatedly encouraged her to get it looked at by a physician. And here Ashleigh's putting you down by claiming that she was around when you were not, which is the exact opposite of the truth. That's the third falsehood. Our data shows that Ashleigh wasn't around for any single part of Stephanie's experience with her breast lump, her back injury, her cancer, or her passing. And yet you were physically there helping Stephanie as much as you could after just having a baby during Stephanie's illness. You responded to Ashleigh by saying in all caps, "I'm driving in the pouring rain," which sounds to me like you were begging her to stop attacking you. And then Ashleigh replied to you by saying this.
I'm not there to see it, so maybe it's not actually happening. Later, Kim.
And then she sends 3 eye roll emojis. What Ashleigh is, again condescendingly, implying to you is that you don't believe in Ashleigh's story, which we know is false. She's saying it's because you weren't there to see it, and that's why you don't believe her. Ashleigh is saying that Ashleigh was there to see it, and you weren't. But in reality, it's the exact opposite. The real truth is that you were there, and Ashleigh wasn't. The truth, you were there, Ashleigh wasn't. If Ashleigh wants to play the comparison game and use physical proximity as a measure of someone's authority to speak on Stephanie, then in reality, based on facts, Ashleigh loses at her own game. However, Ashleigh ends up going on to say this to you.
I know that you can see what you did. I know it. I don't know how you can live with it, but I know you can see it. And I hope it haunts you. Bye, Kim.
And then you replied by saying, no, Ash, we all tried to help with all we had when it was going on. I know you don't realize that, but it's the truth. I was barely paying my own bills and was buying her supplements at one point and doing everything I could with a brand new baby. Nobody saw that. Make me a monster, though. And then Ashleigh sent you some voice messages that we're going to play now.
Kim, I don't think that you're a monster. I think that what you did in your letter is you isolated facts and you painted an untrue picture of what happened. It's just not true. For you to use the facts that you do have and manipulate them in such a way, come on. And honestly, I don't even care about all the people that it impacted because they will have their chance to hear the truth. I can't even call it lying because of the way that you used facts, but you used them so articulately to distort the truth that it ended up being a lie. And I hate that. I can't stand liars.
Wow.
Wow.
Just
unreal.
Wow. First of all, I want to... Oh, sorry.
It still gives me goosebumps hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. First of all, I want to point out that Ashleigh said here that she doesn't care about all the people who her posts impacted because she's saying that they will have their chance to hear the truth. In fact, the people Ashleigh impacted with her false 2020 posts didn't get a chance to hear the truth before these podcasts. If they're even still around and listening, Ashleigh has impacted many people and hurt many people with her disinformation. Secondly, Ashleigh's being incredibly manipulative in these messages. She's twisted everything around so much it's actually scary. She's attacking you relentlessly while you're driving in the pouring rain. Her information is all wrong. She wasn't actually there and you were, yet she's putting you down, demeaning you, and admitting that you used facts, so she can't actually call it lying, but at the same time, she's calling you a liar with all those falsities in her text at the same time. How did it feel to have a grown woman act like this and treat you like this?
Honestly, Amber, I have PTSD from what Ashleigh did to me that night. I was driving to my sister-in-law's wedding festivities. I was alone. It was dark. It was pouring down rain. Ashleigh would not stop. She wouldn't stop. I had to call my husband on the phone because I was shaking. At the time, I was doing my best to protect Stephanie's privacy and to not let her be exploited by Ashleigh. It's really sad that Ashleigh has taken it this far. I've now been attacked personally, professionally. My family has been attacked. Ashleigh is actually the most intimidating person I've ever met.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, Kim, that you've had to go through all of that. And it's really not okay that she attacked you like this. And it's really brave of you to come on here and talk about it because I'm sure that everything we're discussing, brings up a lot of emotion. Yeah. And what's even worse is that Ashleigh didn't stop there. That exchange that we just went through was in 2020. Now 3 years later, several months ago, after I caught Ashleigh and the other plotters for what they were trying to do to Anthony and the medical medium community, and we exposed them in our podcast episodes, Ashleigh went on a rampage on social media. Rather than addressing any of her false claims we had corrected her on with evidence, she pivoted onto other points of focus. She began bullying and making fun of Anthony. She made fun of the light blast and the collecting stones meditation. She made fun of the medical medium community, many of its members. One of her targets was you, and shockingly, your kids. On August 17th, Ashleigh posted this.
This is not enough fuel for a child to thrive. If you watch closely, you will see that the children of influencers who promote extremely restricted diets are often incredibly small, just like Kim's kids.
In this, she tagged you along with a screenshot of a photo of your 3 kids' plates that you had posted that you'd captioned beach snacks. The plates all have a lot of avocado, a bunch of cucumber sticks, a bunch of strawberries, and a pile of cooked cassava flour tortilla chips. Ashleigh continues on in the next story post.
Switching back to the prior convo for a second, many of you are sharing more accounts of raw vegan children, and it's really sad. A few of you have made the point that some kids are just small, and that's true. Some kids are just small, but all raw vegan kids are noticeably small in a significant way. I've never seen a single example otherwise, but would welcome being challenged on that point.
And then, just a little bit later, after Ashleigh must have gotten some serious pushback on this, she deleted the first story and then posted this one.
I did remove that repost of the lunch trays, though, because it didn't sit right with me. I don't want to tear down moms on here. However, I still think it is sad and abusive to raise your kids on a severely restricted diet. How about y'all?
When I first read this, I was sick to my stomach. This is truly despicable behavior from Ashleigh. And I would ask any mom out there, how would you feel if somebody did this to you and your kids? Everyone is entitled, of course, to their own dietary belief system, but it is unacceptable to shame and attack moms publicly for how you think they feed their kids like this. Next, I have to walk us through and point out the falsehoods and inconsistencies here because it's insane. Ashleigh attacked you, Kim, for supposedly malnourishing your children, referring to a photo of your kids' plates as lunch trays, when in the exact screenshot Ashleigh used from you, you literally captioned it, beach snacks. And she has that in the photo that she reposted. How much sense does it make to judge what somebody feeds their kids as a snack, as if it were a meal, first of all, and then the snack plates in the photo have plenty of food on them. There are piles of cooked cassava flour chips with guacamole. There are plenty of strawberries and cucumber sticks. As I said, they were beach snacks. They weren't intended to be a Thanksgiving dinner. They were snacks. Once again, Ashleigh got it wrong. All of your posts online show your fridge being loaded with huge amounts of food and your kids eating plenty of food with tons of variety. Your kids are obviously far from restricted, and it's clear that Ashleigh was just trying to hurt you. And I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, she definitely got me with that one. It first made me really mad. I cried a lot. And then I actually started to laugh because it's just so insane. We were traveling when I posted those trays. It was my husband's 40th birthday. Those trays don't belong to me, but I can tell you they were giant man-sized trays. My baby was 1 at the time. My daughter in preschool and my son is 8. They're little, young children. You are correct, Amber. These were snacks to take to the beach. As for the insults about my kids, I was so sick years ago before medical medium, and these kids were raised with the principles that healed my body. None of them have ever had a cavity. They rarely catch colds and flus. And when they get something, they bounce right back. I attribute that to the way that we live. And I would never call that restrictive. Illness is restrictive. Wellness is freedom. And I know so many of you would agree with that.
Yes. Yes, really well said. And I also want to point out how Ashleigh conflates medical medium information with raw veganism. Yet again, I know that your kids are not raw vegan.
Yeah, Amber, my kids are not raw vegan. They never have been. I have no idea why Ashleigh would put me in that category. There's nothing wrong with raw vegans, but my kids are not, and they never have been. My son has consumed cooked soup that Ashleigh herself made while I was staying with her. That was when we went to visit her family's home in Pebble Beach. My son was also one of the first ones to trial her cooked bread recipe and some of the cooked potato recipe in Ashleigh's ebooks that I always supported. One scroll back will let all of you see that my kids eat loads of produce. Yes, they do, and they enjoy it. But they also consumed cooked foods, and they eat plenty of treats. They're kids, you guys.
Once again, Ashleigh got it wrong.
Yeah.
Once again.
Very wrong.
It's so upsetting.
And I'm sure it's so upsetting. I can't imagine having my kids attacked like that. So Ashleigh has actually seen your kids eat cooked food that she made herself, and she still called them raw vegan. It's mind-blowing.
Correct.
And
correct.
What's so insane, and what also speaks to how carelessly Ashleigh just hurdles out attacks with paying such little attention to facts and details, is that in the exact screenshot Ashleigh took from you and displayed in her post, it clearly shows cooked chips on all of your kids' plates. You even tagged the brand of the cooked chips you gave your kids as a snack with guacamole. Anybody could figure out that they are cooked chips. And obviously, if you're feeding your kids cooked chips, they're not raw vegan. And what Ashleigh's saying doesn't make any sense. Ashleigh got all of these things so wrong. Anybody who's viewing these stories can catch the inconsistencies for themselves, but this is how Ashleigh is. Sloppy Ashleigh never has the details right, makes mistakes constantly, and leaves a trail of falsities everywhere. And then, in this series of attacks on your kids, Ashleigh had the audacity to call your children small. Kim, your kids are objectively some of the healthiest and strongest looking kids that I've ever seen. It's ridiculous.
Thank you. I'm super blessed in that department. And if you followed along with my journey, you've likely seen the pictures of my son that I've shared over the past year. I'm pretty proud of him. He's a head taller than most of the kids in his grade. He's 90th percentile for height. He's a travel and all-star baseball player. In fact, he was on 3 baseball teams this year. He's strong, he's fast, he's unbelievable. And I know that sounds ridiculous because he's my son, but I have every right to be proud after I went through what I went through with his birth and postpartum with him and just being so unwell years ago before finding Anthony. He's not small at all. It's quite the opposite. My middle daughter, and there's been a lot of commenting about her in the community because I've shared her too. She's a gymnast. She's an all-star cheerleader who has literally abs of steel. If you've seen videos of her, you've likely seen, a lot of you have commented, she's literally jacked. The girl has muscles that I didn't have when I was training during some of the most intense training periods of my life. She's muscle. And my baby, who is now 2, is literally a tub. She's got a couple chin rolls. So while this does make me angry, and, you know, she did attack my children, I really think that one simple photo tells it all. It's time for me to speak out because actually, Ashleigh is a bully. She bullied my children. Who does that? Really, who does that? These are lies. She has no business commenting on my children. She has no idea how big or small they are. She has no idea what they eat. I'm still laughing at the accusations from the chips and guacamole plate. That was my husband's 40th 40th birthday. It was a party at the beach. This is just one example of how my life has been disrupted for years now because of Ashleigh. Her social media posts ruined that trip for me and my husband's 40th birthday because they changed my mood completely. They were hurtful and they brought a tremendous amount of stress by publicly attacking me and my kids.
Yeah, it's terrible. And
It's ridiculous.
Ashleigh never should have stooped that low. She never should have done that. Then, after Ashleigh clearly must have gotten called out, Ashleigh said she removed that post because she doesn't want to tear down moms on here, but she still left another story post up in which she attacked a different mom and her kid for their diet. It's obvious that the whole point of these posts was to put down moms for how Ashleigh thinks they feed their kids and the way that their kids look. And like you said, Kim, who does that? Yeah. Ashleigh literally used the word abuse and implied that you are abusing your kids by what you're feeding them when she wasn't even accurate with any of her claims. There's nothing more egregious. Ashleigh just didn't get away with it, and after receiving pushback, that's when she deleted some of it. Your kids are not even raw vegan. Some of it. Yeah, she deleted only some of it and left other parts up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Your kids are not even raw vegan. Medical medium information is not the same thing as raw veganism. Her posts don't make logical sense. Ashleigh's raw vegan attacks are also especially baffling to me, considering the fact that many of her own best friends and co-plotters are actually raw vegans.
Yeah.
I wonder how Ashleigh's raw vegan co-plotters and best friends feel now about how they have supported Ashleigh in getting to where she is, now that she uses her platform to viciously criticize the diet that they follow and promote in their businesses, going as far as to call moms who feed their kids raw vegan food abusive. Plus, what Ashleigh said in this rampage is wildly contradictory to what Ashleigh has said herself in the past. In an Instagram story post that Ashleigh made at the end of 2019 to sell her own ebook, she said this:
"You deserve to nourish your body in whatever way you choose, without fear of condemnation. You deserve unquestioned authority over what your children are fed."
Unreal.
Wild contradiction.
Wow.
This is another prime example of sloppy Ashleigh. It's a prime example of someone who is always changing to fit a narrative that suits her agenda of the moment. Kim, this was absolutely reprehensible of Ashleigh to do to you and your family. And I'm so sorry that you were the target of this attack and that your kids were the target of this attack.
It's been a lot. It's impacted my husband in a big way too. It's been completely unnecessary stress. And from mother to mother, all I think about every time she puts these posts out there is that this is time and energy away from our kids and away from our families. We're not getting this time back. Like I said, so many trips, so many family events, so many holidays, so many birthdays have been ruined for me because of unnecessary abuse from Ashleigh.
Kim, I can't imagine being a mom and then being publicly shamed for feeding your kids healthy snacks and being shamed in a way that confuses people into thinking that you must be some kind of terrible mom that's abusively starving your kids. It's unconscionable. Sadly, Ashleigh has so many things wrong. Another exhibit on how Ashleigh makes mistakes. It makes sense as to how Ashleigh got everything wrong to begin with the Stephanie story when you look at how many things, how many details, and how many claims are twisted, discombobulated, and just straight out factually incorrect.
Unreal.
Exactly. And now, Kim, I want to just bring us back to 2020 for a moment. I know that Ashleigh was attacking you in a similar way in the comments of her retaliation post back then, and implying that you hadn't done enough for Stephanie when she was sick. Your husband defended you in a comment in which he said this to Ashleigh: Can't sleep because your comment of expecting Kimberly to go in a hospital right after having a child is ridiculous. Postpartum mothers are supposed to be resting. She wasn't resting as she was making food and other stuff to send to Steph, on top of driving it to her before she was cleared to actually drive. All of this led to the health issues you mentioned of an enlarged uterus from not resting and taking care of herself. Clearly wasn't enough for you, I guess. And for the record, I was the one that held her back and didn't want her to do even more than she already did and kept her out of the hospital, which is no place for a new mother if it can be avoided. So I guess I'm the bad guy here for trying to protect Kimberly. All of this was playing out online at the same time as Ashleigh was attacking you in the written and audio texts we went through previously. And then there was an email you'd sent to someone who was your friend at the time. The next morning, I have that email in front of me and it says, "Thank you for the email. Last night, Ashleigh started sending me terrible text messages, voice messages, and then that post. I'm not sure what prompted all of it. Honestly, I didn't even read it as I was at a family event honoring my soon-to-be sister-in-law. My poor husband was defending our side of the story as she put my personal information right in that post and failed to mention that I had a baby who was just weeks old as we were still running around and trying to do what we could on no sleep. Our lives are very different, and I don't think Ash can understand a family that has to work for a living and care for their children without help and servants. I'm not being condescending, but realistic. The statements she made about me were appalling. I was driving things to Steph before I was even cleared to drive a car after birth. These girls put that pressure on me. My husband was so upset that he took on as much as he could. I'm really, really hurt by the twists and lies. It's a different lifestyle, and she can't wrap her head around a mother working and caring for 2 children without a nanny, or understand that husbands leave and go to work. All of this on no sleep with a newborn and a 2-year-old. But somehow, I didn't do enough for her. I had Gretchen staying at my home during such a sacred time of having a newborn, not to mention my fear of her being in and out of the hospital and around my tiny new baby. I don't know what the answer is here, but she is pointing a lot of fingers, and there is no truth to so much of what she's saying. I feel awful, harsh, and heavy energy from her. She has an agenda to spread fear and make herself look like a hero. I wish she would spread Steph's life and her love and her beautiful spirit. This is just upsetting. Anyway, I'm pretty exhausted from all of this. I hope you are resting today as I can barely move from all the stress last night. Kimberly." Can you share more with us, Kim, about why it was that Ashleigh and Gretchen were putting so much pressure on you to help Stephanie more and more when you just had a baby? There was so much going on, and it was up to a 4-hour drive one way for you. Why did Stephanie need so much help with food?
Poor Stephanie wouldn't eat the hospital food. She was relying on friends to bring her food. When she couldn't get enough help from friends or family, she just wouldn't eat. Looking back, I asked myself, why wouldn't an extremely wealthy friend send food, a chef, support, something? Instead, I was pushed to the max. I opened up my home postpartum to Gretchen, who came to care for Steph. Gretchen was also met at the airport with a hot tea and a home-cooked meal that my husband and I prepared for her. I wanted to support the situation as best I could at the time, but nothing, I'm telling you, nothing that I did was good enough. Nothing. I don't get that time back with my newborn. I don't get to do it again. I don't get to hold her again as a newborn. I don't get to be there again with my 2-year-old son. I went through all of this, and that time is just, it's gone. It's past. And now I live with Ash trashing me whenever she chooses.
And continuing to disrupt your family time. And it just seems really odd to me that you were the object of blame here, and especially when you and your husband did as much as you could for Stephanie after just having a baby and not living that close to her. It seems like over and over again throughout the whole Stephanie situation, the plotters, Ashleigh, Robbie, Taylor, Christina, Megan, Tony, Gretchen, have tried to place blame on people who were actually trying to help.
Yeah, many of Stephanie's friends were just doing the best they could to help her when it was possible. And that was all acceptable. They were happy if someone donated some time or some energy or some food or whatever it was. But somehow I was definitely a target in the whole thing. I was being pushed to do more and more and more. And whatever I did, it was not good enough. I did what I could in the situation I was in with a brand new baby. Somehow, the 2-year-old little boy and the several-week-old little girl that I had in my arms while my husband was away at work was completely overlooked. They just kept looking at me like I was some kind of robot that was supposed to go and do more and more. It was horrible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And in reality, I mean, you were trying so hard to help Stephanie in an impossible situation on no sleep that you actually had gasoline sprayed all over you to the point that your hair was drenched. And Ashleigh, who was putting all this pressure on you, was nowhere to be found.
And an exposure like that of getting straight gasoline sprayed all over your head, all in your hair, all over your body, it's treacherous. That much gasoline all on your body, soaked on you like that, gets absorbed into your breast milk. You just had a baby, and then your immune system is already compromised because you had a baby. And then you yourself, Kim, were sick years ago. This is a major exposure, which could trigger your system. And then if you were sitting in your car right after you just had gasoline dumped all over you, if you had accidentally hit the car lighter with your elbow or your hand or your phone, just by putting your phone down, you could have gone up in flames. All it would take is just one spark from an electrical wire, from just the ignition of the car starting, and you would have burned up and died along with your baby in the car. All because you're helping out a friend, Stephanie, while Ashleigh was sitting in Malibu in her multi-million-dollar house and then spreading rumors and false claims about how you and Stephanie weren't even friends.
Yeah, not friends. It actually haunts me, Anthony. The whole situation haunts me. It was traumatic, like truly traumatic for me. And to have to live with the constant social media insults, threats, and stress, it just brings it all up over and over and over again. Every single time I see her starting, posting, it's like the antics start, and it all comes up over and over again for me.
I'm so sorry, Kim.
Thanks, Amber.
And yeah, you also,
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. You also ended up, unfortunately, with an enlarged uterus because you were standing up, constantly making food, driving long distances before you were cleared to, and bringing food to Stephanie instead of resting postpartum. And at the same time, Ashleigh was nowhere to be found. While you were going so far out of your way to help Stephanie that you risked your own life and your baby's life and sacrificed your body, literally, to help, you did all of this because Stephanie was a close friend of yours and Ashleigh was nowhere to be found. Yet, Ashleigh has the nerve and entitlement to imply that you weren't doing enough for Steph and that you weren't even a friend of hers at all.
Yeah. Ashleigh always communicated as a very entitled, manipulative woman. I just didn't know to what extent back then that she was entitled. When we all flew out to Pebble Beach to stay in her family's home, Stephanie actually didn't have the money to go. And it was a really touchy subject. But meanwhile, Ashleigh, the daughter of a billionaire family, didn't offer support to her then. I look back at those emails wondering, why did Ashleigh not just buy her a ticket if they were such good friends?
Yeah. It's a really great question. And I looked through those emails. There are a few I want to read off for everyone. The first one was from Stephanie to everyone on the email thread that Ashleigh had invited to a weekend getaway. It was sent on January 11th of 2017, just a few months before Stephanie discovered her breast lump. And it says, Hey, I'm still in the unknown territory if I can come or not. Financially at the moment, not best. However, things could turn around and make it possible very quickly. Flight prices are low, so that's a plus. So I may have to wait as it gets closer to make a move. Is that okay? This question was directed to Ashleigh, and Stephanie said that flight prices are low, but still too much for her to afford at the moment. Then, on January 22nd of 2017, Ashleigh sends an email to everyone in the group with a status update and some background information about each person for her friends who hadn't met each other before. Ashleigh's update to everyone about Stephanie says this.
Stephanie, possible. Steph is trying to make it work financially. I so want her to be there. Steph is a wealth of information and a bright, positive, shining light in any group she's part of. For dinner, she likes to eat heads of romaine lettuce dipped in cayenne pepper and lemon. If that's not next level, I don't know what is.
I was shocked by this email because here, Ashleigh is actually praising Stephanie for eating only lettuce with cayenne and lemon for dinner. As we've covered a lot, obviously, a head of lettuce as a meal, let alone for dinner, is not enough. It is not medical medium information. This is something Anthony absolutely advises against. It was Stephanie's pre-existing approach to food that here we see Ashleigh praising and calling next level, like restricting yourself is something that everyone should aspire to do. And Ashleigh said in this email that she so wants Stephanie to be there. Stephanie had said herself that flight prices were low at the time. In 2017, flight prices were quite a bit cheaper than they are today. I'm sure that she could have gotten a flight from Philly to LA, where Ashleigh suggested everyone to fly into, from a budget airline for $99 to $150. Ashleigh is the daughter of a billionaire family and has a trust fund. As you said, if Ashleigh was truly such great friends with Stephanie and really wanted Stephanie there, why wouldn't Ashleigh have just gotten her the plane ticket?
Yeah, looking back, I really do not understand it, especially with all the finger pointing Ashleigh has done. Ashleigh let her miss out because Stephanie couldn't afford it. And then Ashleigh even asked everyone in the group who was coming to her family's multi-million-dollar home for a weekend for a cleaning fee.
I saw that in the email thread. It's unbelievable. A cleaning fee. So after the Pebble Beach thing, just a few months later, Stephanie discovers her breast lump in March, and then she injures her back, and then she gets sick. During the time that Stephanie was ill, how would you describe Ashleigh's relationship with Stephanie's family? Do you know if they interacted? Were they close? What was that like?
Ashleigh actually talked negatively about Stephanie's family. There was this constant thing where the family wanted Stephanie to receive conventional cancer care, and the plotters were not in agreement with the family's wishes. Stephanie's personal wishes were pushed completely to the side. At the time, the plotters and the family were not on the same page at all. So it's so unbelievably strange to me that now they've come together to blame and attack Anthony, who wasn't even involved in Stephanie's cancer care because the family cut off communication with him. It was a lot for me birthing a baby and trying to simultaneously support a friend who was not well and listening to Stephanie literally stress about her support people closest to her not getting along. I was dealing with the text threads with the plotters that were trashing and fighting with her family. It was horrendous. Seeing those same plotters who were disagreeing with and arguing with Stephanie's family now representing and advocating for them or with them is very confusing to me. My own data clearly shows that there was a major issue between the plotters and Stephanie's family. My husband witnessed this in person when he went into the hospital to visit Stephanie. The plotters and the family were not on the same page.
That's extremely interesting and is something that's very confusing to think about that as well. and how things somehow changed and flipped in that way. And then what happened when your husband went to the hospital to visit and bring food to Stephanie? What did he see?
So my husband observed an argument between Taylor, Stephanie, and Stephanie's family. Stephanie didn't want the treatment at the hospital that was being offered at that moment. She was crying. It's heartbreaking. Taylor was on her team and she was fighting with the family. Stephanie wanted to go to Mexico for an alternative treatment, but her family didn't agree to this. My husband just wanted to have a genuine conversation with Stephanie the way that he had so many times in the past, but it was uncomfortable and impossible because of this conflict that was going on while he was there. Instead, he tried to be helpful and find creative ways to keep the food cold and be sure that juices were kept fresh for her. But the family, they always hated the way that she ate. Dating back years before Stephanie even knew Anthony, the family did not like the way that she ate. The family made my husband feel like he was a villain for bringing food to Stephanie.
Wow. So there was this massive ongoing battle between the plotters and the family, completely independent of Anthony. And just to bring this all together for everyone, all Anthony ever did in this whole situation, as we've shown, was encourage Stephanie to see a doctor, offer emotional support, and try to get her up off the floor she got stuck on due to her injury so that she could get in for proper medical care. Anthony was not Stephanie's health practitioner. Anthony is not an oncologist. In order to get diagnosed with cancer, you need to see a board-certified oncologist. From the moment Stephanie discovered her breast lump, she was repeatedly told by Anthony to see a physician. If Stephanie had listened to Anthony's advice to see a doctor from the beginning, outcomes probably would have been entirely different, and we probably wouldn't need to be sitting here today to talk about this. And you, Kim, you even talked with Stephanie early on about doctors that she could see in the area that were near her. And you said earlier on that Stephanie wasn't receptive to that at the time. And so then Stephanie's battle with cancer ended up going on for about a year after Anthony was told aggressively to stay away. During that time, again, independent of Anthony, the plotters were fighting for Stephanie to get some kind of alternative treatment for her cancer, while the family, on the other hand, wanted her to do conventional treatment. While Stephanie was sick, the plotters and the family were at odds, warring with each other. And then when did things change? When did you see the plotters start coming around and coming together with the family to try to blame Anthony?
I honestly didn't see things change until years after Stephanie passed away. Months after Stephanie passed away, I was invited to her celebration of life. The plotters were offering retreats. Yeah. They were offering retreats to the medical medium community. And then all of a sudden, the plotters changed their tune. It was literally overnight. And to me, that seems so clear that an agenda was born.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And then I want to bring it back to when Stephanie was ill. When you went to go bring Stephanie food at the time that she was living in her family's home, what was that experience like for you?
I went to Stephanie's family's home to pick Gretchen up, who was going to stay in my home. Gretchen was using my husband's car, but on that day he had to travel for work, so I drove to pick her up. I was drenched in gasoline by the time that I got there and needed to take a shower and rinse off as quickly as possible. I showered in one of Stephanie's family's bathrooms. It was a really scary time for me. I had my newborn baby and I brought her in her little car seat because Stephanie wanted to meet her. She actually wasn't able to hold the baby due to the drugs that she was on. I dropped off some food for her and was just in shock from all that happened with the gasoline and all that was happening around me in that moment. It was around the same time when I was told by Gretchen that she had observed Stephanie with dust bunnies on her head and face, and that Gretchen had to dust her off when she arrived in her home. My heart was broken, and honestly, it still is, Amber.
That is horrifying. And the fact that it was Gretchen, who is now a plotter, who saw the dust situation is especially interesting.
Yeah, it was horrible. All of it. The whole situation was horrible. It was so hard to see. It was hard to hear. It was hard to experience. And all at the same time, with everything that I had going on, I felt so terrible for Stephanie. And I couldn't understand why, in everything that she was going through, that she would be covered in dust.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that's really hard for me to wrap my head around as well. And so then at some point, when Stephanie was sick, Taylor, who's now also a plotter, stepped in. Could you explain what your experience was like with her and what role Taylor played?
So Taylor was one of the ones arguing at the hospital. She basically took over, but she also was not fond of the family, and they were not fond of her. Taylor was in charge, though, or at least she thought she was in charge of the whole situation. She was so manipulative and so bossy on the text messages and on the phone. I had never even met her in person, have never met this woman ever. Yet she was calling me out and saying I needed to do more, even though I had a newborn. And I remember thinking that she was really insensitive and mean. And and she just didn't realize. I'm like, does this woman realize I have a newborn right now? She just didn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that description, especially the bossiness, matches a lot of the experiences that I had with Taylor several months ago in person. So Stephanie was in a vulnerable position. Her back injury prevented her from being able to do much herself. She was having a hard time getting the food that she needed. You said earlier that she wasn't really making her own decisions. Taylor, who was acting, as her caretaker, and Stephanie's family were making a lot of decisions for her. You were being supportive and trying to help out as best as you could. Did you and Stephanie stay in touch throughout the course of her illness, or how did that go?
So for a long time, we were in daily communication, personally and also in group chats with various different plotters that were discussing Stephanie's situation. All of a sudden, out of the blue, Stephanie stopped responding to me. I was told by Gretchen that her brother took her phone away, and I never heard from her again. I was also removed from the group chats. It was very, very weird because Stephanie normally would text a lot and send a lot of audio messages and all of that. I was, again, newly postpartum, so swallowing this was all really hard, and I was just trying to survive and feeling completely heartbroken at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were told by Gretchen that Stephanie's brother took Stephanie's phone away.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And we actually have text messages and audio recordings corroborating what you just said that we'll be sharing in another episode. It's really sad that you had the same experience as other friends of Stephanie's who were either cut off without explanation or were told that they were not allowed to speak with her. Yeah. And then I'm also curious about your experience with Stephanie before she got sick. What were Stephanie's eating habits like before she got sick?
So actually shocking to me as someone that eats a very clean diet, which has reversed my own symptoms years ago. I was actually shocked when I met Stephanie for lunch or at a juice bar. She wouldn't eat. It was very rare that she would eat something. She mostly wouldn't eat at all, not even at a completely organic juice bar. One time I actually had a car full of fresh organic produce, like wholesale produce, fresh, and she wouldn't touch any of the fruit, and she would eat only the lettuce. And I just always felt like she was starving, and it just broke my heart. Yeah.
So you experienced Stephanie having some pre-existing problems with food. Just eating lettuce is definitely not medical medium information, and it's really sad, frankly.
Yeah.
And this goes along with so much evidence that we have of what Stephanie was eating and not eating, which is the exact opposite of the story Ashleigh tried to tell starting in 2020 about Stephanie following medical medium information to a T. So Ashleigh's told many false stories about Stephanie and many other things. And now you've heard all the different iterations of the infamous cat story we shared earlier on in this podcast series. Ashleigh told me directly in my calls with her that Anthony had put her on a fat-free raw diet and completely missed the cat allergy. However, one of the true versions of that cat story came from a text conversation Ashleigh had with you on September 14th of 2018, which was months after she had given away their pet cat because, in fact, Anthony had said that the cat was part of the problem. In Ashleigh's text to you, Ashleigh said that Anthony told her to cut out nuts and seeds specifically for her son's eczema, but that fats like olive oil were okay. She also said to you that Anthony had recommended lots of squash, which is something that would be cooked, of course, not raw. So Ashleigh obviously was not put on a fat-free raw diet.
Yeah, this one is really crazy to hear so many versions of this story. Ashleigh and I were actually talking about this because my daughter had skin issues temporarily directly following my exposure to all the gasoline that I was sprayed with while I was breastfeeding her. I have texts from Ashleigh saying that Anthony told her to cut out nuts and seeds specifically because of the arginine, and that other fats like olive oil were okay and cooked squashes were okay, and that he suggested bringing in cooked squashes again, along with bringing in lots of green juices.
Yeah, okay. So now I'm wondering, years ago, Ashleigh, in all these false stories, I'm sure Ashleigh years ago told you a lot of the false stories that we've debunked in these podcasts, like the origin of the breast lump discovery and the infamous cat story. And it's got to feel really weird to look back and realize that you too were told so many untrue stories that were Ashleigh's foundational building blocks to get Robbie and the others on board to try to take down the medical medium community.
It has been really upsetting to see this story evolve after seeing Ashleigh tell her healing story at the Medical Medium live event. I know some of you remember it or you remember hearing about it. Ashleigh herself was suffering, and I mean really suffering. And hearing her words firsthand and seeing her life turn around, and now for her to do this, it doesn't make much sense to me. The very information that saved her life, and these are her words, not mine, and saved my life and several of the other practitioners were plotters. And now to twist it and to trash it and to manipulate it into an article and into an agenda is just upsetting. She has been trying so hard to convince everyone out there of things that are simply not true about Anthony and about this situation. She tried to corner me and make me believe things that are not true. Anthony saved my life, and I've watched thousands of miracles over the years thanks to this information. There is such a clear agenda here, and I actually feel really bad for everyone who has been swallowed up by this. So many of them have been saved by this same information, thanks to Anthony. And I know very personally that he has helped most of these plotters, some of them in their darkest hour, even after Stephanie's death, even when they have walked away from the information. But that just tells you who Anthony is.
Yeah. Wow. I just have to say how sorry I am again that Ashleigh targeted you and your family, Kim, the way that she did in so many different instances. She clearly didn't know the facts about the Stephanie story. She just felt entitled, apparently, to say whatever she wanted. She said herself in her text to you that she didn't care about any of the people in the medical medium community who she hurt with her 2020 posts. If Ashleigh had genuine questions or concerns about what had happened with Stephanie, if she had any real interest in pursuing the truth, she could have asked Anthony about anything. She never did. She could have asked you. She never did. She decided to take it public only a few months after still trying to sell the medical medium community on her self-proclaimed expensive retreats with celery juice and a weight loss plan. She tried to act like some kind of hero or whistleblower when she used a completely false story. Ashleigh exploited Stephanie and her private information, which is the saddest part.
Yeah.
She caused outrage and chaos in the medical medium community with her false stories. She put you and others in a situation where you'd have to defend the truth, and then she had the nerve to attack you for it.
Yeah, she attacked my family, my children, my profession, and I just want to talk about her weight loss book for a second. Twisting the information and claiming to be an expert beyond Anthony's books. I don't quite understand it, Amber, but I can tell you that it confused a lot of people. Ashleigh's ebook was targeting postpartum women, and it was a weight loss plan with portion sizes in ounce amounts. I consulted with a lot of postpartum women who were influenced by Ashleigh's ebook to eat less food and restrict their calories as a means of rapid weight loss. They were under the impression that they were still following medical medium information, when medical medium information does not restrict calories. They were just following Ashleigh's twisted information. A lot of these women had their supply of breast milk drop because they were not eating enough. And some of them even blamed medical medium information for that, when it wasn't medical medium information. It was Ashleigh's portion controlled information that she was marketing to the community, and it was so irresponsible. Ashleigh has done a lot of damage. I'm hurt and lost. I'm traumatized by all of it. And I just want it to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy that you had those direct experiences, and with the impact that her weight loss ebook had on women, particularly postpartum women in the community. That's extremely sad. And Ashleigh really is the originator of twisting medical medium information, and she's had a lot of influence on how that's happened in more recent times, even, with other people and in other cases. And it's all really sad. And Ashleigh has indeed done a lot of damage. And that's why it's so important that we're here, to set the record straight, to help stop Ashleigh and the plotters from misleading, deceiving, hurting, or taking the chance to heal away from anyone else. So thank you very much, Kim, for coming on. I know that you're a busy mom of 3 little ones and that this wasn't easy to do. I really appreciate you being here and sharing a lot of these really difficult experiences.
And I appreciate both of you very much.
It's unfortunate that we had to get together for something like this, setting the record straight. I'm sure the medical medium community and anyone even outside of the medical medium community truly appreciates your caring and willingness to get the truth out there. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
I appreciate you both.
Thanks.
Thanks.
As we are in the process of exposing Ashleigh and her organized hateful group for who and what they really are, it's important to take note of their tactics and patterns that are likely to follow. The plotters have a documented history of initiating attacks using lies and misinformation, and then, upon getting called out and corrected, trying to flip it and play victim. That is not going to work here. All this group has done is spread verifiable lies and falsities. They've carelessly attacked and harmed many innocent people. They've used and exploited deceased individuals and others in the process of trying to get what they want. They've repeatedly, explicitly expressed the intent to harm medical medium, and they've even deliberately tried to stop Anthony from doing a free event to support and raise money for the community. We have every right to set the record straight and to defend the truth with facts and evidence, and to defend the chronically ill against the malicious attacks of this group, and we are going to continue to do so.
We expect the plotters to evade and ignore what they have done wrong. We expect them to continue to lie and spread falsities. We expect them to pivot onto something new they'll make up. And we expect them to skew and alter data and to hide critical pieces of evidence that undermines their entire campaign. We also expect the plotters to fabricate explanations as they do everything they can to try to discredit what we're exposing them for having done and said in their own words. But we are using their own text messages, voice messages, social media posts, words that they spoke on recorded calls and other published materials. There's no use of any AI in any of these episodes and never will be. All of the information was fact-checked and forensically investigated. If you've been harmed, deterred from your healing process, bullied, shamed, emotionally upset, or physically hurt by flare-ups of your conditions from the stress induced by the plotters' attacks, like hundreds of others have reported, please go to medicalmedium.com/safe space to submit your report and share your story. If you've been contacted by anyone who's tried to deter you from using medical medium information, please take screenshots and screen recordings and submit them to the same place, medicalmedium.com/safe space.